This is American History. This is Thursday, April the 15th. Well, we learned yesterday that George Wallace had tried to deny the admittance of two black students to the University of Alabama. We heard that he was unsuccessful, and the Alabama National Guard was forced by the president to admit the students. Here, of course, is the video that we saw. In the neighboring state of Mississippi, James Meredith is going to ask for admittance to the University of Mississippi. There will be a race riot that will develop as he is enrolled into the university. The president will be forced to call out the United States Army to keep Medgar Evers safe and to make sure that the university is not burned down. Here is a short clip about this from the international news. In the summer of 1963, Dr. King is going to organize a march on Washington, D.C. The march is an effort to show how much the nation is behind integration. This is the largest gathering of any group in Washington, D.C. in our history. It was at this march that Dr. King is going to give I Have a Dream speech. This is part of his speech. A plan had been established in the Eisenhower administration to send Cubans back to Cuba to overthrow Castro. Now, this could not happen during the Eisenhower administration. But during the Kennedy administration, the CIA, these are our spies who had been training the freedom-loving Cubans, are going to persuade President Kennedy to allow them to intervene. This intervention took place in Cuba at a place called the Bay of Pigs. It was a fiasco. The Cuban army was waiting for them. Kennedy refused to support the Cuban freedom fighters with naval and air support, and those who were not killed are taken prisoner. It will be decades before they will be released. In 1961, the East German government and the Soviet government are going to build a wall between West Berlin and East Berlin. This is going to cause a great deal of problems. There are those in the United States who said that we must stop the building of the wall, that we must send in tanks and knock the wall down. This certainly would have brought about a war with the Soviet Union. Khrushchev is going to increase the money that he has given to the Warsaw Pact. Now, the Warsaw Pact are a group of nations that are aligned with the Soviet Union. They are there to soften the blow if the West was to try to invade the Soviet Union. Kennedy is going to ask Congress to increase the amount of money to those countries who are fighting communism. But it was in 1962, when an American spy plane was flying over Cuba, that it took pictures of medium-range missiles. Now, these medium-range missiles could hit anywhere in the United States in just a few moments. All of them were capable of carrying nuclear weapons. Here is a picture that one of our spy planes is going to take. It clearly shows the construction of launch site. It clearly shows buildings where the nuclear weapons would be housed. Kennedy decided to call upon the UN to condemn the Soviets, which they did. Kennedy is then going to put up a blockade, and he's going to blockade any Soviet ship that is about to enter Cuban waters with the possibility of holding missiles or nuclear bombs. It is obvious to everyone that we could easily get into a nuclear war if shots are fired. This here talks about the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviets will eventually remove all of their missiles. The United States will remove missiles that we had in Turkey. In 1963, both sides are going to call for a nuclear testing to stop above the ground and a reduction of nuclear weapons. It was during Kennedy's administration that the United States is beginning to send military advisors to South Vietnam. Now, the sending of military advisors had actually begun during the Eisenhower administration, but more advisors are going to go during the Kennedy administration. Now, the purpose of these advisors is to stop the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong are South Vietnamese people who would like to see the communistic form of government. Many South Vietnamese had wanted free elections. The idea was, let's have free elections to see what type of government we should have. The South Vietnamese government was led by the Diems. Those are two brothers. And they refused to host elections. The United States became aware that the South Vietnamese military was about ready to topple the Diem government. We did nothing to try to stop the military. The Diems were overthrown and they were killed. Kennedy was more concerned about the United States and should we get involved in this war with the Viet Cong. Kennedy had suggested in his inaugural address that it was the right of every American to bring technology to the third world. To this end, Congress created the Peace Corps. The Peace Corps is composed of those who have just graduated from college, or those who have retired, who have technical knowledge, and will go to a foreign land to teach their technical knowledge. We do this without asking the foreign government to pay our people. Instead, we do that. 1963 is a year before the primaries, and Kennedy had won such a close election that it was advisable for him to go to some of the southern states and make sure that they understood what he was trying to do. In November of 1963, Kennedy will land in Dallas. The idea was he was to land in Dallas. He has a breakfast speech. He then is going to motorcade through the city. He's then going to hold a luncheon speech to a different group. And then he's going to have a fundraiser and then get out of Texas that day. On this day in 1963, a lone gunman will kill John F. Kennedy. Here is how it was reported on the news. With President Kennedy dead, the Vice President of the United States will now have to become president. He has to be sworn in by a federal judge. Now, here is the federal judge here. Here is Lyndon Johnson taking the oath of office. This here is Lady Bird Johnson. She is the wife of Lyndon Johnson. And this is Jacqueline Kennedy. Johnson said he would not take the oath of office until Mrs. Kennedy and the body of President Kennedy was on board. If you were to look at the full-length picture of this, on Mrs. Kennedy's skirt, you could see some of the blood of the assassination. All of this, of course, was recorded. Here is a short video about Lyndon Johnson and his acquisition as president. Well, this is as far as I think we can go today. Tomorrow, we're going to look at Lyndon Johnson and his attempt to create a great society.